Hello, everyone, and welcome to the sixth episode of the Search for Tomorrow podcast, where I interview some up and coming or less well known Canadian Magic players. And for my guest today, I have someone who's actually a very good friend of mine. I have Spencer Mazur, or more notably known as the Happy Sandwich. How's it going today?
Oh, pretty good. I'm doing right. How you doing?
I'm good. So, one of the reasons I decided to bring you on is not only because you're my friend, but
Very good
because
friend.
you've actually been crushing it in modern for quite a while now, I would say. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you have that we know the most modern challenge top eights this season. Correct?
Yeah, I really like modern. It's kind of my thing.
And not only that, you also won the Mana Trader series in June playing modern, and you're sort of like the go-to for everyone when it comes to lists for Hammer, at least in like the circles that we frequent, or even on Twitter or Moto. So you've really made a big name for yourself playing Hammer Time.
Yeah, I really like my list. I know over the past couple months it's put up like the most results of any list. Uh, like usually my 73 or 75 of my cards. Uh, I think it's just probably the best list out there. I don't think I'd go to anybody else's.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. It's hard to argue with the results. It's so crazy. Like people kept saying, like, "Oh my God, he's just top eights everything. He top eights everything," and then he just won the June mana traders as well. It's just like a nice cherry on top for like getting something like pretty substantial to go along with all of your great challenge results. It's pretty sick. I love to see it.
Yeah.
But so the whole point of the podcast is to highlight people that like aren't like one of the known names in the Magic community, or like the people you would expect to be like the top players at like there's no GPs anymore, but like at face-to-face events or the regional championships or even like your local RCQs, the people to like worry about and watch out for. But like the thing is, there's people out there who have got really good during the pandemic or like have
Yeah.
started before the pandemic, and these are the people that are just going to keep crushing these events that no one's really going to know. And the point of the podcast is kind of highlight these people and just like put a pin in it, put a stamp in it that like we told you they were very good. Don't be surprised when they start winning everything.
Yeah.
And you've really just been crushing it. Like your growth from before the pandemic to
Oh, it
now
was awful.
has been so massive. But before we get to that in particular, why don't you start with like your start with Magic and then how you got into competitive Magic?
So I started with Magic in high school. A few of my friends just bought Magic cards and just started playing and excluded me. They didn't buy me any cards or bring me with them, which kind of sucked. But then I eventually convinced them to come with me, buy some cards, and then we just all started playing together. Built some really shitty decks, some like Terra Stomper, just awful decks, just pretty much unplayable. But then that eventually led us into playing EDH. Uh, and we go from store to store trying to find stronger and stronger cards to put in our decks over weeks and weeks. And that was really cool to see the power creep of our decks kind of increase over time. And then just as I was uh, graduating from high school, uh, I bought my first standard deck and went to my first pre-release, which was my first like maybe not tournament but actual gameplay experience in a store. Uh, and that kind of really made me want to play Magic a lot more. I go out every Friday, uh, go to every pre-release, try and buy a good deck, and then I eventually found my way into a friend group that just had a bunch of very good people in it that wanted to travel to GPs, be competitive, try and get to the pro tour, and I was always the worst of them, unfortunately, which kind of sucked for 5, 6, 7 years. It was good seeing them succeed, but it was always shitty that I was just not good enough. And it was a lot of self-imposed stuff, just like not happy with my play, making a lot of simple mistakes, and not trying to fix them very often. Uh, but you, Devin, Kale, Thompson, who was another very good player, always pushed me to be better and better. And then post pandemic, or as the pandemic started, I really wanted to continue playing and continue getting better. And then when I found Hammer Time, it really spoke to me as a deck in a way that no other deck has. Uh, and then I just started putting up results, and I just kind of have a drive to play competitive Magic now because I'm doing so well, and I just want to continue that into the future.
Okay. So do you think you were always like competitive in like your EDH before you got to the local store? Like were you always trying like really trying to win or maximize play, just trying to have fun?
I was trying to. Yes, I was. I was trying to make my deck better than everybody else's from the start. I'd always try and buy the best cards and try to beat them as best as possible. And I succeeded for the most part, I think.
Okay, and like so what was your first standard deck? Like when you went to the local game store and decided to start playing standard?
I bought Chamber of the Parishes, and it was just green white humans. I had a pet card with Revenge of the Hunted, and I turned three to a lot of people going Addison's Pilgrim into Silverblade Paladin into Revenge of the Hunted at the top, and just killing them on turn three. And I was pretty happy about that.
What is Revenge of the Hunted?
It's a
Is that the
miracle.
miracle? Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
one green +6/+6, and all creatures able to block it have to do so. And when you give something double strike, that is at least
Does it
12
give
damage.
trample?
Yeah,
Okay. And what does it cost if you don't miracle it?
6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Little six mana.
Well,
But at the
yeah,
time you could play Wolfir Silverheart too.
that's
That card
5
was
mana.
that card was pretty crazy with Silverblade Paladin at the time.
Yeah, it was a combo.
Do you think having like this like affiliation with like a powerful deck kind of just like led to the perfect thing? Because I know previously, because we know each other, you really gravitated towards a lot of bad decks,
Yeah.
and you kept playing them. And like sometimes you would get really good with the deck, and it may not be that good. What made you decide to play this deck that's like finally like tier one of the best decks, or did it just happen to be the deck you liked happened to be one of the best decks?
Uh, I didn't really want to play Hammer Time. You showed it to me initially, and I thought it was kind of a meme, unfortunately. So I kind of sat on it for like a month before I started playing it. Um, but it was just so strong. I think I won like at one point I was like 58-7 in leagues with it, just killing everybody. It was just so strong. And then it started becoming the meta more and more, and it became one of the top decks. I just wanted to stick with it because prior to this, I picked up humans well after it was tier one. I picked up Affinity well after it was tier one. Before that, I was a mono blue gamer on Tron. Not a good deck, very bad. I still put up results. I didn't top eight anything because I was awful and the deck was bad. And before that, I think my first modern deck, probably because I was poor, was Soul Sisters. Also very bad. But I've always been attracted to these decks that could just make big creatures and attack for big numbers all at once. And I think Hammer Time is the first time that I've played a deck at its peak and also been playing well. And I just really want to stick to it, even though like some people call it a one trick, but I'm totally fine with that.
It's a good trick, right?
It's a
Like
good trick.
yeah, so one thing, so it feels like the kind of decks you sort of gravitate towards are the decks that have the ability to have these like incredible starts for free wins, but also like have the ability to not fold completely, like different than like an all-in combo deck. It's like a deck that has all-in potential, but at the same time, it doesn't just like auto lose to a certain card or doesn't just die right away if it doesn't win that turn. And I think Affinity is sort of like that. I think Humans is like that back in the day, even though it was a little slower because it was disruptive, but some of its starts were so disruptive and fast that it kind of felt the same as sometimes you just ran away with games. You're like champion of the parish into Thalia, into Reflector Mage, into Lieutenant, Image Lieutenant, and then there's like your opponent never had an opportunity to play the game, like a free win. And I think Hammer Time capitalizes that on really well. Just the card Urza Saga is the perfect card for going fast and going late because it fetches part of the combo. And yeah, I think it's kind of cool what you pointed out that you're like playing the deck and you wanted to stick with it. And that's like sort of what drove you to get really good, I think, is because once your deck became more popular, the hate became like really bad. Like lots of Force of Vigors, lots of like Stony Silence, like Collector Oof, just all sorts of these cards that are like built to hose hammer, chalices. But you've been forced because you like the deck so much and you want to play the deck to just kind of get better because you want to keep beating all these strategies. Do you think it's like that? Do you think that's true? Do you think that's kind of what happened for you?
Yeah. So something about me is I learn by repetition. So I find it very hard to go into a different format or pick up a new deck and just do well. I need to get reps on the deck and just play it consistently for a long time. And doing that with one deck allows you to really understand the format of like what you need to be expecting from each deck and what to play around, where your power points are, early game going into the mid game. And especially with Hammer, where you definitely do get some early free wins by just equipping a hammer to like an Ornithopter and attacking for 10 or attacking for 20 on turn 2. But it's mainly about finding the correct spot to go all in or the correct spot to force resources from your opponent that they don't want to be using on those turns. Um, and just sticking with the deck for so long, I have just extremely efficient at trying to do that every time I play and making the correct decision every time, which is something Hammer also excels at. When its pilot makes the correct decisions every time, the deck is almost unstoppable, it feels like.
Yeah, no, definitely. The difference between good hammer players and bad hammer players is astronomical. It's probably the hardest deck to play in modern because there's so many decisions and they're very punishing. So
Yeah.
like a lot of decks have tons of decisions, but if you mess up, it's not that the end of the world. You just like are down a card, but you could be down a card, two cards, and like your avenue to win the game. So it's like super punishing in that regard. And so like all the things you just described there about your affinity for hammer reminds me of affinity.
Yeah.
Exactly what you're describing is there's the turns where you have to understand, okay, I'm going to put 4 counters on Inkmoth and attack twice. I don't think they have an answer. It's my best option. Or I'm just going to keep playing threats like they go to kill it. I'll just sack it to Ravager. They go to hit my Ravager. Sure, I'll let it die. I'll pump out up another creature. And you
Yep.
just kind of keep creating these like negative interactions or exchanges with your opponent. So what do you think basically what I'm trying to get at is why do you think this time you improved so much more than with Affinity? And I wanted to kind of throw out the idea, do you think that you would be able to get this good that fast if it wasn't for the pandemic? And what I mean by that is if you're driving to like your LGS every week or 3 times a week instead of playing on Moto 3, 4, 5 times a week, do you think that had an effect?
I definitely do, because it just allows me to play so much more Magic. When I know a lot of people who only play paper, and they just don't understand their decks as well as a lot of people that play online, it feels like. Because I just have hundreds, if not thousands, of more games than them, even if they play like once or twice every week at their local stores. So it definitely helped just being able to sit here a lot and just grind when I want to and just put those reps in because that just is very helpful to me.
Yeah, I think there's also something to be said about the experience of like players like us, for example, that play on Moto in discords all the time and not necessarily like asking for advice in the moment, but there's just so much feedback constantly from each other.
Yeah.
And opinions, and you just kind of get like a whole bunch of information really fast from a bunch of different people. And when you're at the LGS, it just doesn't happen. Like maybe they watched your last three turns of a game,
Yeah.
and the time sync as well. Like at an LGS, you go, it's like 5 hours, you played 4 rounds, and then you're home. And on Moto, it's like 5 hours, you've played 15 matches, you've like talked a whole bunch with the people you're streaming with, or maybe just thought about it yourself. I just think the pandemic really accelerated a lot of people's growth who are wanted to stick with competitive Magic or were getting into competitive Magic, and their only outlet just happened to be like the most efficient outlet to me, which is Magic Online.
Uh, yeah, I think I'd agree with that. Like, I try and go out every Friday because I like paper Magic, but getting to play 4 rounds over 4 hours is kind of brutal. Like, I 5-0'd a league in like 21 minutes once with Hammer, which is like, obviously it's not gonna happen every time, but I just get to then play another league if I want to. Whereas if I'm out in paper, I just can't do that. Even playing against your friends or some random person in between matches is not really the same because they're not like actual games of Magic. So it is a little bit different.
Yeah, it's been so cool to like witness your growth as your friend. So like there's some people who in Magic, like let's say I just didn't know who they were, and then they start putting up results. Now I'm just like, oh, they're very good. But
Yeah.
it's just so sick to like see you go from where you were to now. It's like now you're so good at playing Hammer. And I think that is going to translate to other stuff. Have you played like other formats and found yourself playing better, or at least like thinking about things differently? Like, has playing all this Moto and all this success sort of changed your mindset or changed your thought process when you play games?
Because Hammer's so hard to play and it makes you think so much, it's definitely made me improve like all across Magic. Uh, I've been playing Pioneer a lot lately, playing Abzan Greasefang, which I feel is the most like Hammer adjacent deck, so it fits right into my playstyle, attacking for 13 on turn 2 sometimes. Um, it's definitely just made me an all-around better player, playing so much and playing such a hard deck, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of transferable skills, and it's funny you bring up the deck you're playing in Pioneer, Abzan Greasefang. It's just like the same sort of descriptor of how it seems like you like to play Magic. There's the free wins, and then
Mhm.
there's like this sort of eking out value and playing a longer game. But honestly, is Greasefang that good at playing a long game? Do you think, or do you think you just have to try and beat the hate and move on? You're sort of a plan A only deck.
No, I definitely think it has two plans. Because there's so much recursion with Can't Stay Away to get Greasefang back, and there's so much ability to find Greasefang with like Grizzly Selvage. You have so many options to attempt to combo off, and they have to answer all these pieces every single time. And then Essica's Chariot is also just very good at grinding away. And
Okay,
because, oh sorry, do you wanna go?
no, go ahead.
Because you hit 8 lands on turn 8 every single time because of things like Satyr Wayfinder and Grizzly Selvage, you're always playing your Perhelion if it's in your hands, and it's just a way to kill them in the late game. So
How often does casting Parhelion come up?
more
What deck?
often,
What decks
yeah,
aren't killing
often.
you?
I don't know. They got to block everything. They got to kill everything. They don't have a lot of time to set up when
So
you're trying to go off.
it seems like so from what you've described is like the deck has a plan A that's pretty resilient because it can do plan A multiple times, and plan B is sort of like Azika's Chariot and recurring it and bouncing it and stuff like that. Okay. Yeah, the deck's been putting up a lot of results lately. Do you have like like what new innovation to the deck do you think happened that kind of put it back on the map? Because not a lot has changed.
I think a lot of people were just on different colors before. I think the green splash is newer. Um, I'm not really sure because I wasn't playing it before this. I don't think I was really playing Chariot before, which is a really good plan B, like you were saying. Uh, and the green cards are just so good. Like Grizzly Selvage is probably, to me, the best card in the deck. and it
Yeah.
just has so much ability to just keep you in the game, I think.
Yeah, I think the only card that's new from the deck that started popping up was the 2-mana looter.
Rafine's Informant.
Rafine's Informant. Yeah, I think that's the card that sort of started popping up recently.
I did see a list
So,
recently that cut that for Rotting Regisaur though. However, I've not tried that list yet.
well, you haven't tried the big Roddy.
No. Rotman? John Rotman?
Okay. So, have you qualified for the regional championship? You have, correct?
I've qualified. I have 2 invites, one to Toronto, one to Calgary.
Okay, why don't you talk to me about how you got both of those invites?
So one of them was at the face-to-face open on July 9th, I think. Playing Hammer. I didn't do too great. I played mostly well, I think. Uh, I went 5-3, came 32nd, so I was very, very lucky to get the invite there. Uh, I did get a game loss though, because I have foils in my deck and I really like foils. And I forgot to ask a judge about it at the start, which was not a good idea. And my second invite was from an RCQ in Trenton, where I went 7-1 with essentially the same list. I haven't changed my list in a very long time, so I'm pretty happy to get both of those, I think.
Okay, and is your current plan to go to both regional championships?
Uh, Maybe I'm going to Toronto for sure. I currently don't know about Calgary because I'm qualified for the Mana Traders 30K at the end of the year, which they don't have a date for, but it did say the second weekend of December, which is the exact same weekend as Calgary. So I don't actually know if I'm able to go to Calgary if I'm going to be playing in that tournament.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I wonder what the EV play is to which one to play. Mana Traders is is it a 30K or is it a
Yeah,
10K?
30K, 48 people, and first place gets 10 grand,
Holy, that's a lot.
which that is a lot, I think.
And I suspect Calgary would be like 300 players, 250 players, and first place gets like 4 grand plus Worlds and a Pro Tour invite.
Yeah,
But you'd have to fly to Calgary and like stay in Calgary, so like it costs you like $500 to play the tournament.
yeah. I guess if my end goal, which I guess I would like to make the Pro Tour because I've never been there before, and obviously Worlds is even more than that, but it would be to go to Calgary, but I'm not currently sure because I definitely have to see the date first for the Mana Traders.
So now that you're playing a lot of Magic, is the goal right now you really want to qualify for a Pro Tour?
Yeah. So I've been playing since 2011, and I've been awful for a lot of it. So I've made like 1 RPTQ, and I didn't come close to even qualifying for the Pro Tour. I've done very poorly in GPs. I think I day 2 like 3 times and cashed once. So I've never even come close to making it to the Pro Tour. And I think it would be really cool to get there now that I'm good, I guess.
Yeah, I think I think you could do it, honestly. I think you have a really good shot. I think these regional tournaments are an amazing opportunity. You've been crushing it on Magic Online, and Magic Online is harder than paper. It's just
Oh yeah.
quite simply much harder. Have you noticed that you like went super hard on Magic Online that you come back to paper? And why don't you just tell me what it kind of feels like the competition, like the kind of players you're playing against, and also just kind of describe how it feels different or how it feels the same.
Uh, so online, I feel like the competition's a lot higher, uh, especially because anybody can play at any point, and there's going to be a lot of grinders that want to be playing all those tournaments. Paper feels a lot different to me. Uh, a lot more mistakes to be made because you don't have Moto like playing half the game for you with triggers and everything. And a lot of them are just local players who just want to come out and have fun. So it doesn't feel like everybody's out to like spike the tournament and try to win everything. Um, so it's definitely a lot different, but I really do like paper. Uh, Even if I also like being competitive a lot of the time because not everybody really wants to play the same game as me. in paper where like they just really want to have fun, where I'm not really being there to do that all the time. So
Yeah, your fun is like you're there to have fun, but your fun is like trying to improve, getting better, and like winning, not necessarily like the things you're doing within the game per se,
mhm.
right? Yeah. I thought you were going to be like, I'm not there to have fun. I
Well, I'm
don't play
there to make
Magic for
friends.
fun.
Well, every time I go out, there are a lot of new people at one of the stores I go to, and my goal when I'm playing against somebody like that is always trying to make them feel okay with their own play and helping them improve. Because I'd rather see everybody at a store be competitive in the same way that I am. And I don't ever want to make people feel bad, even if I want to win every time. So I do be a little careful to like obviously just not be an asshole.
Yeah, it's important. Like, if you want the community to grow to like the kind of competition you want, if you're at the top of the field or
Food
whatever, you
chain.
have to help people grow. And sometimes that's like a cost to yourself. Like, you'll let them take back like an obviously terrible play. You'll like remind them of their trigger. You'll make sure that like the game state stays nice and that you're never like getting them on a rules interaction. You just always want to keep them feeling good about the game and try to help them learn if that's what they're interested in. And sometimes people they're not interested in that, and that's okay too. But I think growing your local scene is just going to help you grow, because I think that's one of the things that stunts a lot of people's growth is the local scene. If you're just like significantly better than the people around you or stuff like that.
Yeah, I've lost more than a few games just letting my opponents take stuff back and telling them how to kill me. Which is fine. Like a lot of the plays are illegal because they might not know what they're doing. So obviously I can't you can't take advantage of that. But it's just tough. I really just want people to get better around me, I guess, is what I'm saying. And that's important to me at a local level when I'm playing like an FNM or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, I can understand that. I personally have stopped playing local Magic almost entirely, and not necessarily because I think like those around me are like bad players or anything like that. It it does factor in that I feel like I have less to learn from them than they do from me, and it's just feels like a better use of my time to just like play Magic online with like some really high quality players that I know are really good, especially when my goal is to grow personally myself, get back on the pro tour. I played the last two paper pro tours, and I would really like to qualify for this paper one as well. And like it means a lot to me. So just as much like using my time wisely, I've just stopped playing locally. And I do miss it, but the tournaments I love the most are the paper ones, like going to the face opens, the regional championship qualifiers, just or like 1Ks, 2Ks, just good competitive paper tournaments are is the best kind of Magic. It just feels so much better.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I only go out once a week to play Paper Magic on like a casual basis because, like you said, playing online and playing with good people surrounding you makes you a lot better. And me and you play a lot of MODA together, and I know we're always trying to help each other in the same way. Um, but I
Sometimes
definitely,
it's less helpful than others, but
oh yeah, most of the
when I
time we're
get you
shitting on each
killed.
other. Yeah,
Or I'll tell you to make a play after seeing the board stay for about 10 seconds, and you'll just do it.
yeah. My friends are a lot worse at playing Hammer than I am, so it definitely gets me put in positions where I kill myself a lot, which is not ideal. But all in good fun, I guess. Except in all the top eights you guys have thrown for me. But
It's true. We've thrown a lot of top eights for you.
yeah. At least two. But
Wow.
um I think paper tournaments, actual tournaments, are probably the best, especially when you get to play in a competitive environment where you're also hanging out with your friends. Uh, those are probably some of the most fun. Uh, but also going and doing well is especially where I want to be. And my path is the same as you, where I do want to get to the Pro Tour at some point and play higher level Magic. So I'm definitely competitive in that aspect.
Because just because you have like a unique experience to some of the other guests I've had where you weren't the best player before and you're very good now. What do you tell me how paper magic feels different for you now than it did then?
Um, I think I just noticed a lot more mistakes now from other people. Uh, Paper Magic kind of feels like, I don't know, kind of like cheating a lot because everybody takes stuff back. Uh, and you can make a play and just like kind of move back on it, assuming you're obviously like not trying to get an advantage. Um, it just feels like I know a lot more now about how the game works from playing online and just being a lot more structured. Whereas a lot of people who haven't played online, it looks like they just play a lot looser and don't really pay attention to the board state and what their opponent's going to do because they're too busy, I don't know, talking or like just looking around at the environment. So,
Yeah, the one thing I would say I noticed like difference between paper magic and magic online when it comes to like RCQs, 1Ks, and face opens and the like is that my opponents don't quite understand the timing of when to do stuff.
oh, for
It's
sure.
like with triggers on the stack or like without triggers on the stack or like letting me draw a card first and just all that kind of stuff. It just feels like there's a lot of people making a lot of errors in that way. And that's why sometimes if because Moto lays it out for you, it feels like paper magic is like easy mode because other people are making so many more mistakes.
No, it's infinite mistakes.
Like, do you feel like you show up to an RCQ, you should expect to top eight?
Um, I don't really. I try not to expect anything because a that puts me in a bad position. I think where if I do poorly, I'm gonna feel like shit. Uh, but I don't think anything is for granted. But I do always like to think that I have a very good chance of doing well. Um, and most of my paper experience so far since I've been back, it's been about 8 months or so, have been positive, which I'm very happy about. Uh, but it does seem like lately, at least in the smaller events, that I'm the best person there, which can kind of be bad because there are many people that are still better than me, and I'm not learning in the same way that I would if I had a stronger field around me. Like say
Yeah,
that
one
like a face open.
yeah, one thing I would always say is like you can learn something from anyone and not just necessarily like them teaching you a lesson, but it can be a lesson learned playing the game against them, like a spot you haven't seen before, an interaction you haven't thought about, a better way to do something that you didn't consider would be better because of like a circumstance that doesn't happen that often, but it is like just better to do it a certain way. I think like you said, you shouldn't expect to top eight any event. I think you should just expect yourself to play better than most people. And
Yeah.
if you do top eight because of that, then so be it. I think you got to have your goals be focused mostly on things you can control. I think it's okay to have like the overarching goal of like qualify, like qualifying for the Pro Tour. But I think it's just a little bad to have it be something just like that. I think it's, you just have to kind of take it easy on yourself and let yourself lose because it's going to happen. Because I notice a lot of players who are like just on the up and up who haven't like quite hit the level where I think they can qualify for like a couple pro tours every year. They make that mistake all the time where they feel like winning is the only important thing when it's absolutely not the only important thing.
Yeah. My goal is to mainly I like winning, but my goal is to just play well because if I play well consistently, I'm gonna do well. Um, and just as I was starting to get better this year, I had a lot of onus on doing well every event, and I still kind of have that mindset where when I'm playing a challenge, if I'm not top 8ing, I kind of feel bad. Even though if you top 16 or top 32 most tournaments, like that's a pretty good result if you can do it consistent. But I was kind of hard on myself for a bit for just like not being at the top of every tournament. But again, I'm not bad, but there are still a lot of players better than me, so I can't always expect to do the best. And also, the game is just full of variance. So even if you're making all the right choices, you're gonna get variance out sooner or later.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that mindset you kind of talked about of like being pissed off because you didn't top eight a tournament, that happened to me right when the pandemic started. And I think we were both playing the white black enchantment deck. And I remember we both top aided quite a few tournaments. And I think I top aided like three or four of the super PTQs. And
Yeah,
then
those are great.
and then I just started to feel bad if I didn't win. Like I would was having excellent results overall, but because I wasn't qualifying for the pro tour, I was upset. And that's part of the reason, that toxic mindset is why I took a break from the game for a year.
Yeah, I think we both took a break for a bit and then kind of came back at the same point. But just not being too hard on yourself for most losses, and especially when they were out of your control. Like I'm pretty hard on myself when I make mistakes because you can't play perfectly all the time because that's would be insane. But consistently playing well, and then when you're just like have an entire month where you play bad can be pretty hard on your ego, I guess. And it can be tough to kind of crawl out of that hole when you are playing poorly for such an extended period of time.
Yeah, ego is a tough thing to deal with when you're starting to get pretty good at Magic, and there's this like thing where you want people to recognize that you're good, and you start making dumb mistakes, or you start like caring so much about what other people think that it ends up just like negatively reflecting on your play or even like your mood. And I think that's something that I've definitely fallen into quite a few times before. And I think just eventually, myself at least, I'll make a pretty dumb mistake and it just doesn't even really bother me anymore because I'll just note it and not do it again next time and just kind of move on. I think for my relationship to be okay with Magic is I just had to accept to like forgive myself when I do something stupid or I like make a mistake, because like I can play better, but I think you just got to give yourself a break. Like take it easy on yourself.
Oh, it's definitely impossible to play perfectly all the time. And when I throw like my winning in a way, like especially a game where that's actually important, I'll be hard on myself for like the hour or two after, but then at some point you just got to throw it away and like reset for the next day for the next tournament. And being able to do that because I was so bad for so long, I have it in my brain that it's like okay to lose, and I think I just had to relearn that at some point over the past year, and I don't know. My relationship with Magic is pretty okay right now, I think.
Yeah. So I appreciate you talking to me today for this episode. I think there's a lot of great insight with everything you've told us, and so I just wanted to know, what tournaments do you have coming up next? Like what's down the pipeline for you for the next month or two?
I think it's just I'm qualified for the Modern Showcase qualifier, I think it's called, which is the one before the mocks, and that's on this Saturday. So I hope to do well because that would be dope. I think that would be really cool to win that somehow. Uh, and then it's not really much till like November, I think, since I'm
Okay.
double qualified. So,
Are you going to be playing any regional qualifiers? Because you're allowed to in Canada. Keep playing.
yeah, shout out to a regional qualifier on the 27th at Critical Hit Board Games. I'll be there. I'll sign your hammers.
Oh, will you?
Uh, my signature is very bad. Don't do that. Please don't do that.
Okay. Well, before we go, I just wanted to plug our sponsor, face2facegames.com. They have a crazy sale coming up from August 5th to the 22nd, and it's up to 75% off of everything. So you got to figure out what that means for whatever you're looking for specifically. But there's something out there that's 75% off. At least one thing is 75% off. But we do appreciate that. And if you're a store looking to host these regional qualifiers to get your competitive scene going, face-to-facegames.com is the place where you can sign up for these or get information on how to sign up for next season or anything you really need. And if you're a competitive player and you are looking for your store to get more competitive, just urge them to check out face-to-facegames.com and get these regional tournaments. There seems to be like a decent amount of stores that have a competitive community or like are close to a competitive community that didn't really sign up for one. So if you want to see one, let your store know and let them know where to go. face-to-facegames.com. Well, is there anything you'd like to say or plug, Spencer, or the Happy Sandwich, as it were?
No, I'm good. Thank you for having me, though. It was fun.
Yeah, no problem. Where can people follow you on Twitter?
@_ Happy Sandwich. And then there is my YouTube channel that I don't post to very often, which is just my name, Spencer Mazur. So like, comment, and subscribe.
Oh, look at you.
Cut that. Don't
Oh
cut
my
that.
gosh. No, we're not cutting that.
Cut
Do
that.
not cut that. All right. Well, that's the 6th episode for the Search for Tomorrow podcast. Thanks for listening.